Hey everybody, I am Erica Carlson. I am a real estate agent with BRIX Real Estate. This is I Heart Minneapolis Homes, MPLS.com, both my program and my website that I'd love for you to check out. Whether you're starting your home search or you're thinking about selling your house, we are happy to help you. Today we are talking about the part 2 of the must-knows for your home buying journey. You may already know this, so you can skip it, but if you are new to this process, you have not really heard all the various steps that go, please stick with me and we will continue this second part. Now, I don't want to be too repetitive because I'm assuming you saw part 1, so please go back and check that out if you haven't yet. So let's jump right in. Just trying to find my stuff here on the screen. So let's talk about what the lender is doing. So you've got that accepted offer, and now the lender is going to start really working on that loan process. It is extremely important to stay in full communication with that person through the entire process, as that miscommunication or any lack of paperwork or whatnot can really slow down the process and keep the house from closing or closing on time. So we want to keep working with that person closely, and that includes someone like myself who's the real estate agent, to make sure that that process is going very smoothly. At the same time, we're ordering that inspection, right? We need to get started on that so that you can make sure you've done your due diligence. Now, of course, if you don't get an inspection, maybe that piece isn't as important to you, but it just depends if you planned on that and are ordering one. Then we have the earnest money. In the state of Minnesota, I believe it says 2 to 3 business days from the time that you get an accepted offer. So your real estate agent will make sure that you're doing what you need to do to get that money in. Remember, it's like good faith money is what I was going to say for the earnest money. It's not the down payment, just to be very clear about that, but it is a credit on your closing. So it is a credit towards your sale. So assuming everything goes well, it typically goes into the down payment process, though I've also heard of it going into the closing costs. So you'll want to check that out. So now there's some contingencies that you might have written on your offer that we need to talk about in a little bit more detail. Now, not every offer comes with contingencies, and contingencies is just a spruced up way of saying exception. So I'm not going to close or I'm not going to purchase on this house unless X, Y, and Z happen. So I want to just talk about a few common contingencies that you may want to include on your offer. We talked about inspection just a moment ago. That's a common one. That's something you typically do in the first 2 weeks of being under contract. It's not something you want to drag your feet on too much, because the seller is anxious to put their house back on the market if you decide that you're not going to purchase it. Some inspection items you might want to think about looking into is, does the house have a chimney? Do you want to test for radon? As we know that this is an invisible gas that can cause cancer, and your real estate agent should give you a brochure to get more information on the radon. Do you have a well? Do you have a septic? You might want to test those things. You might be required to by your loan, so it might not even be like something you can decide on. Depending on the loan type, they may require that you do a well water test or check into your septic system before you purchase it. Plus, some of these items are extremely expensive to repair. A less common one is some people will scope their sewer lines, especially in certain parts of the Twin Cities. There might be more cause for concern if it's an older house, that there's tree roots or whatnot inside the sewer lines. So again, can be extremely expensive if you find something, but it also might be a peace of mind, as you are the buyer and you should know what you're purchasing up front. So inspection is just one. So there's all those things I listed would be kind of like sub versions of those things, but do make sure you're communicating with your real estate agent if you have any concerns about what you want to inspect on a house before it is yours. Appraisal and financing are typical contingencies that people with loans are going to typically have. I don't even ask my lender buyers, meaning you're getting a loan, if you are going to get financing contingency. It just comes with the territory. I've never heard of anybody not having a financing contingency if you have a loan. Extremely important, because what if they can't finance your loan? If that lender can't do it, can a second, can a third? Are you running out of time to answer that question? So you want to protect yourself by having that contingency, that if there's some reason you cannot obtain the loan, whether you lost your job maybe something else happened. It doesn't have to be catastrophic, but it could be something that prevents you from actually getting the loan. So you need to have that contingency in there. I feel like I'm forgetting something major, but I think those are kind of the general ideas of what you would write a contingency on. So assuming all of that goes well, the lender orders the appraisal. It's typically a necessary step when you get a loan. Somebody comes out to the house, a third party, they check it out, they make sure that the value of the home matches the loan type. So very dramatic example here. The one I always say is, let's say it was a $200,000 house. You wrote $1 million offer. The lender wants to protect themselves in the sense that they don't want to give you $1 million on a $200,000 house. They want the loan to generally match the value of the house, because if we're being quite blunt, there's always that fear that you, the borrower, could stop paying that loan. And so why would they want to be stuck with $1 million when it could have been 200,000? So again, it's dramatic just to make my point. And I know people have strong opinions about this part of the process, but this is the way it works currently. So assuming everything goes fine with the appraisal, we are waiting for a clear to close from the lender. Extremely important words that we get very excited to hear. Sometimes we don't hear these words until hours before the closing. So that's always a little nerve-wracking for everybody involved. But as soon as we get a clear to close, that's then the sentence that says you have 100% got the funding. We have all the contingencies have been cleared from your lender's point of view, and we can go ahead and purchase the house, and they're going to fund it. I once had somebody tell me that they didn't care that they had a clear to close. I think it was simply that I was a newer agent and I didn't know how to explain to the person that, no, this means you have money. The pre-approval is the first step. We're really excited on those final days when we finally get that. Now we can get a clear to close much earlier than this, and it would be ideal in most scenarios to hear those words earlier, but that's not always the case. So the real estate agent will bring you out for your final walkthrough. Really would not recommend skipping this. If you absolutely can't attend it for whatever reason is going on in the moment, ask your real estate agent to go on your behalf, or even a family or friend, but real estate agent would probably be fine if it can't be you or somebody that's going to live there. What you're checking for is that water is running, that the house generally looks like the condition that you saw it in when you did your either the last time or your last showing. So there's no surprises. Some examples, and I've been on both sides of this, like once had like the ice maker that's on the outside of the fridge was leaking on a vacant house, so nobody knew that happened. So now the floor is ruined. You have to address all of those things. Did all the repairs happen that were negotiated in during the inspection phase? Did that actually happen? Is there evidence that it happened so that the buyer feels good about moving forward with the purchase? Big thing is personal property. It doesn't feel great to show up on closing day like an hour before and there's a dumpster full of things that we have to now deal with, whether it's easy to deal with or not. It's neither here nor there. The seller is supposed to leave the house in a broom swept condition. And so if the person that's buying doesn't feel like that it's clean enough and it's going to cut it, what are we going to do to get to closing? If it's personal items, really no personal items should be left behind. But again, it's up to you as the buyer that if there's a little bit, can you deal with it? If it's too much, what is too much? So those are things to always think about on your final walkthrough. So when we get to closing, these days post-COVID, the seller typically pre-signs and the buyer signs the day of the closing. I haven't seen a lot of exceptions to that recently, though if you were out of state or there was something going on, the title company would work with you. But as the buyer, you typically are going to be there in person. If you have a partner or a spouse that's purchasing the house with you, they also have to be there with driver's license. Whether you wire the fund or have a cashier's check, all of that needs to be ready to go. It's a relatively quick process, depending on whether you're getting one or two loans, whether it's a cash purchase. These things determine the length of time, but I'm typically sitting in closings between 10 to 20 minutes. It's not really that long of a process anymore. And now that we don't sit with the seller, it's actually less of an awkward process because it'll be you, the title company. Sometimes your lender shows up. Most of the time your real estate agent shows up. It's minimal amount of people to be COVID safe. You don't actually really need your real estate agent unless something big comes up. So that's it. You get the keys, you celebrate, the house is yours. You move that day if you want to. The house is completely moved over to you. You probably already dealt with the utilities and whatnot. So I know I'm talking really fast on purpose because I know we all have a short attention span. I really appreciate that you tuned in. Did I answer all of your questions? Is there anything else you can think of? Feel free to comment below. If you're thinking about buying this year, this is a great time to get started. You really can't start on the consultation process too early. I mean, at any point, getting the information and moving forward with the important steps is always going to be valuable, even if it's going to be some time out there before you actually really do this. If you have a friend or a family member that's thinking about buying, I'd love for you to tag them in this post and give them the information that they might find really valuable. And as always, I'm here to answer any questions. Hope you take care. Bye-bye.